In this video, we're going to take a look at some exercise questions for lesson 3.11, starting with question number 3. Carol ordered 8 pizzas for her children. The children ate 1/4 of the pizzas. How many pizzas are left? Okay, so we know that she ordered 8, and we know that they ate 1/4 of the pizzas, so 1/4 of the 8 pizzas. So how many pizzas are left? Well, let's first determine what 1/4 of 8 is. And this means we're going to multiply. So 1/4 of 8. And we can cross reduce. We're going to divide by 4. And 8 divided by 4 is 2. So we're going to get a fraction of 2/1, which is 2 pizzas. But this is what the kids ate. So the 2 pizzas were eaten. The question wants to know how many pizzas are left. So we have to take away the pizzas that were eaten from the total. There were 8 pizzas in total, minus the 2 that were eaten means that we have 6 pizzas left. For question number 7, the price of a house in 1977 was $35,000. In 1978, the price was 1/5 higher. How much did the price increase in 1 year? Well, what we need to know is we need to know what is 1/5 of $35,000 so that we can determine what the increase will be. So for A, we're going to take 1/5 of $35,000 to see what that is. And when we look to cross reduce, we have a huge number here, $35,000. But what we can do is focus on the 35 part of it. So how many times does 5 go into 35? We're going to divide by 5. And 35 divided by 5 is 7. And those zeros, we bring those. So we get 7,000 when we divide 35,000 by 5. When we multiply numerator and denominator, we see that we get a denominator of 1. So the price increased by $7,000. So that is going to be our increase. So then part B asks, how much did the house cost in 1978? Well, we know that it went up by $7,000. So now we're going to take the $35,000 from 1977 and add the $7,000 of the increase. And when we add those numbers, we get $42,000. So in 1978, a house cost $42,000. Question 10b is a really important question. When the question wants you to do half of a recipe for these cookies, you have a strategy. You can divide everything by 2, or you can multiply by 1/2. Remember, division by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by 1/2. As we have learned in our fraction unit, we can avoid division by changing the sign to multiplication and by flipping the number to its reciprocal. And the reciprocal of 2 is 1/2. So when I see that I have 1 cup of sugar, because it's a whole number, I can divide that by 2 or multiply it by 1/2. So 1/1 times 1/2 is equal to 1/2. And we know that half of a cup of sugar is a 1/2 cup. When we take 1/4 cup of butter, if we divide by 2, we end up flipping anyways. Because 1/4 divided by 2 means we have to change and flip to the reciprocal. So it's much better for us with fractions to multiply by 1/2 right away then to set it up as a division question, and then we end up having to change it to multiplication anyways. So a quarter times a half becomes 1/8. So we have 1/8 cups of butter. If we look at the milk, we have 1/3 cup of milk and we want half of that. We can multiply by half right away because we're finding half of 1/3. And that equals 1/6. And so you can finish these other quantities by multiplying by a half, which in the end with fractions is much faster than setting up a division by 2. Question number 12 is a little bit different. A recipe calls for 6 cups of flour. So that's what we need, 6 cups of flour. But you only have a 1/3 cup measuring device. How many times will you need to fill this device in order to get out the 6 cups? So we can see here through a diagram, very bad drawing, that what we don't have is, we're not trying to determine what 1/3 of 6 is. We're trying to determine how many times we're going to fill up this cup. And through the arrows, we can see that this is a division question. So we're going to take the 6 over 1, and we're going to divide this by 1/3, because we're dividing the 6 cups of flour into that smaller 1/3 cup. But we don't know how many times that's going to happen. Well, in order to determine the division, we're going to have to keep, change to multiplication, and flip to the reciprocal. And then we can see that we have 6 times 3 is 18. And 1 times 1 is 1, but we know we can remove the denominator there for a whole number. So we will need to fill that 1/3 cup measure 18 times in order to get the 6 cups that we need. Question number 18. Jim purchased 10 cords of firewood but must haul it himself. However, his truck will only carry 5/7 of a cord of wood. How many trips will Jim have to make to haul all the wood? So I'm imagining a big pile of wood. And then here's his truck, and you all know that I can't draw at all. Here's his truck. And so he can only take a little bit at a time, and he has to go and come back and fill up again. So he's going to be filling up and filling up and filling up. And we know the total. We know that there's 10 cords of wood. So for this one, we're not figuring out what is 5/7 of 10 cords. We're trying to figure out how can we divide this 10 cords up. How many times is he going to have to go back to this big pile? So this is a division question. So we're going to take 10, the total, divided by the 5/7 that he can get in each load. And because we have division, we're going to keep, change, and flip to the reciprocal to make this easier for ourselves. And 10 and 5 are able to be cross-canceled. So we can reduce by dividing by 5, divide by 5, and we end up multiplying. 2 times 7 is 14, and 1 times 1 is 1. And we can just leave that denominator. So how many trips will he have to make? He will have to make 14 trips in order to carry all those 10 cords of wood.